Hi, here we are for October Transaction Review and Calculator Practice. This is our mastermind session. A couple of things we're going to do right away. Of course, the standard disclaimer that this is for educational purposes only. This is just my opinion and things that I like to talk about and share, ideas that are powerful for solving problems. And so right at the beginning, as per usual, I just want to go over just a quick little deal that'll help us get some calculator practice. This one is, and many of the people on this call already have heard about this, but it's a duplex that I closed on just last month. And I was trying to find some of these non-owner occupied people who own rental property and see if they want to sell. So I had done a mailing campaign. And this guy called me. He's owned this duplex since like the 80s or something. And he just got tired of it. And one side has been vacant for 3 years. That's how much he didn't care about it, just sitting there not making him money. So it's a nice little duplex. It's not a trashy, garbagey type one. It's on a corner. And the market value, if he would have listed with a realtor, they'd probably gotten in that 210 to 225 range. I ended up getting it for $160,000, and I wanted only to put down, if I could, 10 or 20%. But what it ended up being is that we came down with $90,000. So since my mom was looking for something just like this, and I'm always trying to get her to come move up here, so she put down the money. So I'm just going to go over this quick little deal, and it was $160,000, and then just divided by, let's say the conservative market value was 210, so I got it for basically 76%, so about a 25% discount from retail, and then 90,000 down, so 160 minus $90,000, 70,000, so that goes in here to PV, present value, or loan amount is how you can think of it. I asked him, what he was going to do with the money if he got all cash, and he said, "Oh, I don't know, I'll just put it in the bank." And I go, "Well, what are your other investments doing?" And he says, "Well, my best ones are at 4%. So I said, "Well, what if I can give you 4%? Wouldn't this be, better than your average investment that you're holding in your portfolio?" And he said, "Yeah, that would be great." So he made it 4%. And in this case, and that's what I put here in interest yield, I'm going to recall, this is a nice little recall button, because I want this 70,000 back here, and I'm going to put it as a negative number and stick it over here in future value, because he just made it an interest-only loan. I thought he would want it fully amortized, but he said, "No, I'll give it to you interest only, so you have a lot of flexibility with your cash flow, but I want to be paid off at the end of 10 years. I was trying to get him to go 20 to 30 years, but he didn't like that idea. He somehow, even though he'll die with his other investments still hanging out there, he wanted this one resolved before he thought he would die. So anyway, all things considered, this is still a great deal for me. And then, so in this case, 120 months, so 12 years times 10 years times 12 months is 120, and I'm going to solve for the payment. So the payment's 233, and if I just make the minimum interest payment in 10 years, I'll still owe him the principal balance of 70,000. So, and of course, just because it's interest only doesn't really matter. This number doesn't even really matter. In fact, it's super easy. 70,000, you don't even need a financial calculator. 0.04, that's the interest for the year, divided by 12, that's the interest for the month. So anyway, just different ways to come up with a number. But let me get this number back in here, just so I have the loan. And let's go to the next slide. Okay, so the unit, this little one on the corner, is a 2-in-1. It's renting for $600 to a super old guy. He's like 92 and goes to dialysis 3 times a week. And he's on a fixed income. He simply can't afford more than that, and I just am going to leave him there at that. I don't want to stress him out. At this point in his life, I could probably get 650 or 700 out of that, maybe even more when he's out of there. This other unit, while it looks small on this picture, it is a 2 and 2 and almost 1,000. I think a little over 1,000 square feet, 1,100. I don't know. It's a nice size unit, and no one's been in there for 3 years, but he's kept it maintained. So the carpet was great, need to be cleaned. The paint was great, not even need to be cleaned. It's a little bit outdated in the 70s, but I can live with that. So that one I'm getting 1,400 for, which the reason is because I decided to treat it more like Airbnb kind of style, and because if I put a long-term tenant, I might get 900 out of it or 950, but I decided to furnish it, and I'm having a traveling nurse that wanted to rent this, and this is what she pays at her monthly rate at the hotel, and she's sick of at the hotel, so that's just what I put it for this first try. And the week after I closed on it, we had it furnished, and she moved in like a couple days later. So, wham bam, thank you, ma'am, on that one. So basically, now I won't always have this. There'll probably be some downtime on this between tenants because she's only there these traveling nurses are only in town a few months at a time. But just pretend I'm going to get $2,000 a month in gross rents here. And just, so I'm real happy about that. And let's see, and right away, I'm going to say times 0.25, because when $500 is going to my reserve account right away, because when this guy moves out, the old guy, I'm going to have a lot of deferred maintenance to do. It's going to need all new paint, new carpet, new everything, because he's been there a really super long time. So anyway, $500 a month, 25% of whatever I get is just going to go into reserves, which is a savings account attached. And out of that, I'll have about $400 in expenses. So that takes me down to $1,100 left over after expenses, the utilities and taxes and insurance and all that stuff. So $1,100 there, and I'm splitting it with my mom, and so that's $550. So I'm going to send $550 to her. So let's see if that's good for her. $550 times 12. She's going to get $6,600 a month divided by the $90,000 she put in as the down payment. She's going to get a 7% cash on cash return, which is better than she's getting. I think her best, I don't know, money market account might be 2% or something like that. So she's getting that. Plus, if she ever decides to come up and live here in my area, she can. I'll leave the unit open for her. And then out of my half, the $550, right, which would be my half. I've got debt service out of my half, right, because she already put in her money. So I would technically pay the $233.33, and if I wanted to, I could say, great, I'll put $316 in my pocket. But I think it would, if I could keep this going, and I know, use that back button, I like that. But if I were to pay, let's just see what happens if I pay $550 towards debt service. So I'm not going to really take any money out, but over the next 10 years, I'm going to build a lot of equity here. And while still taking care of my mom, her needs, and also, a place to live in this area if she wants to in the summer. So then I wonder if I do pay $550 a month, what will my balloon payment be at the end of 10 years? So it's only going to be $23,000, which is really nice, right? That would be pretty easy to pay off at that point. Or he's probably going to be happy and just extend it. He'll decide that this is a really safe investment. So that's just taking a few minutes to practice on a real life deal that I did. Is there any questions, comments? Hi, who's here? I feel lonely.
Hi,
I don't hear voices.
hi, Yoka.
Hi,
I'm here,
Kiyoka. Hi.
and I have a question. How did you arrive at the 23,000 for the balloon payment?
Oh, okay, great question. So what I did is I put the note in here, right? So I know the principal balance of the note is 70,000. I know I'm paying 4%. I know the term is 120 months, and then if I paid 550 a month, I wanted, so if you know any four of these, you can figure out the fifth. So all I did is put in the knowns, and then I just clicked future value, and it calculated what the balloon would be at that time. So
Okay, yes, I guess because on the 70,000, you're paying interest only. That's why you came up with a balloon, correct?
right, because the way, so if I recall this, and then I put it as a negative, because for me I always put these two as a negative. If I saw, now I know I have a $70,000 balloon, and I know this and this, so I'm going to solve for the payment. So this is all I really owe. So if I decide to put some principal, like I don't have to, but if I decide to pay down the loan, then I can see that without, obviously this isn't going to be consistent because there's going to be some vacancies and other factors that'll come into it. But like without, well, it's not true. I put 5 or 6 thousand out of my pocket to furnish it, so that it's more like an Airbnb style thing than just a straight rental. Because a rental, like I said, I could only get 950. This way, I could probably get 1,500 a month for this, so it almost doubles the rent I can get. But I had to spend the money to furnish it. But you can see that, like, I own half of this, and hopefully I can take, like we talked yesterday, 100% of the depreciation on it too as a tax shelter. But
Yeah.
yeah, so does that make sense? So then I just go,
Yeah,
what
I
if I, what if I did really have this much a month, and I say, well, how much would I have to come out of pocket for my half of this deal with my mom? And so it's not much. So basically, I'm building a lot of equity, and paying down this loan. Like, I'm not paying it down, the tenant is, right? So it's really nice. So in 10 years, I could, have this thing owned free and clear, on my side, and then.
all things considered, if you didn't pay the additional and you only paid the 223,
Mhm,
233, then
mhm.
you would owe 70,000 at the end of the 10 or 12 years, correct?
Correct. Right. So if I knew that I was probably
Got
just
it.
going to have to sell it at the end of 10 years, then I would just keep the cash flow, right? That extra 200-300 bucks a month, just put it in my pocket. But to
Yeah,
me, this is a long-term hold, that I plan to keep for a very long time. So really, I'd prefer to be building that long-term equity, and not have to, have a big payment. If I knew I was going to sell it, I wouldn't pay it down probably. But
I'm thinking when people do an interest only loan, there is no clause that prevent you from paying additional to bring your principal down.
yeah, he made it no prepayment penalty.
Okay.
Yeah, because sometimes they will put in a prepay because their strategy is to defer capital gains. But in this case, that wasn't an issue for him. He just wanted to make it so, it was easy for me and easy for him to keep track of. A lot of people love those interest-only loans because it's easy to figure out your cash-on-cash return. Because how much interest did I get? And if you get some of your principal back, it's harder for people if they don't know how to use a financial calculator, they can't figure out what their return is on it.
Correct.
You know. So just a quick, kind of simple, everyday type of thing. It's not real, anyway, I just like these. So thanks for listening. And so now I want to get David Zamaron from, hey, Dave, what part exactly? Where do you live exactly?
Central Michigan.
Yeah, I know Michigan. Say, what's the city again?
Mount Pleasant.
Oh, Mount Pleasant. Yeah, Mount Pleasant, Michigan. And we've been emailing and talking. You've been, with me for a while here. So let's talk about your deal um, that you've graciously been willing to work up some, these slides with Axel. Really appreciate that. So talk to us about this deal.
Okay, a little background. My partner Sean and I located this property last year. It was bank owned, and it was very under marketed. We acquired it all in for about 40,000. I don't have that number in front of me, but we went in and got a private note on it and did the
You got
rehab.
some hard money loan for acquisition and rehab?
Yes, correct.
Okay, great. Uh-huh.
Okay, so that enabled us to acquire it, do the rehab, and place it on the market. One of the challenges with these types of homes is that the end financing is limited. It's not an impossibility to get them financed, but many of the lenders, conventional lenders, won't lend on a manufactured home. But we have the sources for it on the brokerage end to put people into this. But it's a little bit of an outlying area, and so we're considering this option to really accommodate the local people that live within 10 miles of this house that otherwise are shut out of the market.
And the reason is because of the lack of traditional financing for this asset and in
Yeah,
this
knowledge of it, and then also, there are people that are just under the cut line for being able to pursue that, and that's kind of one of our specialties is to cater to these types, and so that's why we are, coming forth with this concept on this.
Gotcha. So basically you have this, it's for sale, and this is a sort of let's run a what if scenario on how it would work.
Yes, correct.
Okay, great. And when are you guys coming? Are you bumping up against that the balloon, the maturity date on the original loan?
Yes, first of the year approximately, first of 2017.
17.
So
You got about
so
3 months or so.
about 3 months, yeah.
Right. Okay. So you're all just out of curiosity, what are you all in on this with acquisition and rehab and holding costs and all that?
One moment on that. Our payoff in December of 2016 is $48,008 to our hard
So let's just
money.
call it, okay, let's just call it 50 or so with some, does that include all the rehab too?
Yes, it's all inclusive in that number. We're all
Okay,
in at
great.
that number.
And then, but you've had interest payments you've paid over the last year or two?
Accumulated interest that is included in that number.
Oh, nice. It was a
All our
straight
interest
note? Straight note?
is a straight note at 11%.
Hey, nice. That's a good deal there. That's really great.
Yes,
Okay. Yeah, so that's good. There's a lot of upside here for you, right? It's just then, but you're not wanting to decrease this price because it doesn't actually help you, right? Because if someone can't qualify, they can't qualify, right? Even if you drop the price 5,000 or 10,000, right?
correct.
Okay. So you're going to ask for 10% down. So just going over this for anyone who's, I apologize if this is, too simple, seems simple, but 10% down for an owner occupant, that's a very respectable down payment. Is that pretty likely a number that you're pretty likely to get, Dave, in your area?
Well, yes, it's likely, and it also, $10,000 is a lot of money to everybody, but it's
Right.
in particular a lot of money, for a would-be home buyer, enough so they have skin in the game, and it greatly decreases the chances that they're going to take a walk. Okay,
Exactly.
so yeah,
Okay, so 10% down leaves a 90% note, which is exactly what you have. So this is the note, 90% of the purchase price. He's thinking of doing owner financing. And just to point out that Dave and Sean have been in the business for a while, so they're doing a few of these a year. So here, that's the number we put in present value or loan amount. You're thinking to put in an interest rate of 9, which and how did you guys come up with that number? I think it's a great number, but where
I actually took your guidance and some of your comments that 9% will maybe keep you out of court in the long term if you're
Yeah,
ever
keeping it under
serious.
under 10. Under 10 is great. So in that 9 to 9.9 is a good number. It looks really as a like a reasonable private money sort of rate. I don't know. There's other people who feel perfectly fine if usury allows it, to go up to 10, 11%. But okay, great. So that's just a really nice number. And to make it and let's see, property taxes, insurance, PI. So basically PITI, so you're trying to figure out what someone can afford and you're trying to make it pretty equal to rent, right? So that there's not only do they have this down payment skin in the game, but um, there's nothing, they can't rent cheaper somewhere. So, right? So you've
Exactly.
made so you're trying to make PITI not be too high. So we're looking at a long amortization, and normally, the longer the amortization, the more of a hit the note takes. Sorry about that. Um, so, but it just really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So this is great. You're trying to get the price, and you're trying to keep PITI very similar to rent. And then, so now I know these three numbers I've put in, and because it's fully amortized, I got to remember to put 0 in my future value, which is the balloon payment, So, and then now I've put in these four, so now I'm going to solve for payment, and I'm going to get what Dave has here, 723.44 with taxes and insurance. That brings it up to 900 a month. Um, so, and that's any other comments on that, Dave, or from anyone else? Questions, comments?
Hi,
Uh,
I have a. I don't want to get lost, but what did you
yeah.
say your all cost was?
Kyoka, did
What was
you
the
did
question?
you mean his all-in cost or? Yeah, it's about, you're cutting out just a little bit. I don't know why, but anyway, it's
Oh,
about 48 or 49,000. So call it 50,000 or so.
okay.
Yeah. So now he's in it for 50, and now they're trying to exit out before the loan gets called. Just out of curiosity, Dave, what will this lender do if you blow past your maturity date?
They will work with us. Who they are exactly is ironically a sizable real estate developer, a very large landlord, and his
Mm-hmm.
brother. They have an assortment of business. My relationship goes back, 20 years with them, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
just able to approach them, for 12 or 24-month notes at 11% based on trust and prior relationships.
That's great, and they're fronting the 100% of acquisition and rehab too. I mean, that's also says a lot about your character or your reputation equity. That's not, in this case, is more important almost than the collateral, right?
Absolutely.
All right, I
You,
really want to understand this whole transaction. So you borrowed 50,000 from a private lender at what interest rate?
11%.
11%, and for how long?
I think our term was 18 months perhaps. I'd have to look at it, and it's accumulated interest. In other words, we haven't been making monthly payments. It's just rolled over month to month. And, we had hoped to have it sold by now, but, we're looking at doing something more creative in order to get it sold and at the same time turn it into a long-term investment.
oops. Okay, so
Okay.
basically, you must have borrowed less. You must have borrowed. I'm just trying to figure out. Well, here, if I do, you said that, let's say it's 49,000 total demand is the demand, then you must have borrowed close to just 42, something like that.
That's about right, yeah.
So you got a really, really good price. This is probably one of your HUD homes. Is this one of your,
Actually, there's a site out there called hubzoo.com and hubzu.com. And
How do you
they're
how do you spell
marketing
that?
HUB, like hub, ZU.com.
Okay, HUBVU.com, Hub
Yeah,
Vu.
yeah, Hub Zoo, like a
Oh,
hubcap and then ZU.
oh, ZU. Okay, ZU,
Yeah,
Hub Zoo. Huh.
yeah. And just a little bit about them. There are two institutions that are behind them. One is called Aquan, and the other Altisource.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a marketer. They're a marketer, an REO marketer for institutions like Deutsche Bank and Bank of New York, and some of the large institutions.
Mm.
Now, they're staffed by people that are based out of India. Okay, when you speak with somebody live on the phone, you're talking with somebody in Bangalore and so forth. But the real thing with it is that they're terrible at marketing. They're absolutely atrocious. When you go on this site and read the rules that apply to being able to acquire their properties, it's very confusing. The general public is very confused with it, but we've learned it and we use that to our advantage. The more attention you give it and the more you study the site, you understand it, and the result is making some good purchases. So we kind of take a problem that is a problem for most people and use it to our advantage in these acquisitions.
So it's kind of like a version of HUD, but just for these other companies.
Yes, precisely. And they
Okay,
do an
so
auction format. They do an
uh-huh.
auction format. Both private parties and brokers can acquire properties. They
Oh, so you
do
don't have to
cycles
have
of,
a broker do it for you.
no, you can do it as an individual, an unlicensed person. And they do a series of auctions that are 1 week in length, typically.
Hmm.
Okay. I see the screen, and for example, the one at the top that says 186,000, that's not the price that you're going to acquire it at. It's probably 200 plus. So they
Right.
put this teaser number out there, and you can see there's 1 hour and 0 minutes left in that particular auction in Reno, and they have a reserve. It'll say reserve met no, and I just bid on one for a client the other day that the starting number was maybe 37 or 38,000, and it went for
Oh.
70. Okay,
Mixed for double.
but yeah, but like I said, when the general public looks at it, they're very intimidated generally on trying to maneuver through it and figuring out how to purchase. But as a professional, if you take the time to learn it, there can really be some good opportunities.
Great. So like I saw zero in Carson City and I see five in Reno that has a population of 400,000. How many are you seeing in your area?
If I pull up Michigan, there's probably a few hundred.
Yeah, so in some areas, a lot more than others. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Dave. That was a super great tip. I appreciate you sharing that. That's really cool. All right. So now let's get back to it where you have a lot of equity here. You just need to be able to move it. He'll work with you, if you need to, but I don't know, maybe it'll cost you a little more, or maybe you're just tired of carrying it or something. But all right, so let's talk about this. So you're wondering if you can sell it with owner financing and sell off a front end partial. And I think this is the one where we were running through in the email string that we did a little bit, right? A week or two ago.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
right. So now it's like, okay, if we do owner carry and remember that note amount, oh gosh, what was it? I gotta redo the note. If it's 99.9 times 0.9 equals, there's your loan amount, 9 at 360. And fully amortized. Okay, so here's the note that we have back in our calculator right here. And So we know, so talk to me about the partial and why, talk to me about this number.
Okay. That number, you see ITV, but beneath that, I believe that it was my calculation for our proposed purchase versus the either the note amount, beginning note amount, or the purchase price. And so we wanted to show a spread there of safety for the investment.
Yeah, so like, yeah, typically, my standard is I don't want to go over 65. So that's going to be my max ITV. So that would be the most I could potentially bring to the table. Obviously, lower is better, but I always put that number. In this case, you've got it down to, if you're only asking for 55,000 divided by, assuming this is, the value, a very fair value for the property. Well, that's only 55%. So what were you, is this ITV? Well, if you only want 55,000, if I'm only coming out 55,000, that's 55% of the value of the property. But this must mean, maybe you meant percentage of UPB divided by 89, 9, 10. So yeah, okay, good. So the ITV would really be 55. So that's my protective equity. So I'm in at 50 cents, just a little over 50 cents on the dollar there, right? And then the percentage of the note that I'm buying would be 61% of the note, which is 89,000 when the value of the property is 99,000, right?
Correct.
So, okay, great. So that's all good, thinking through that. And the 55 will, after closing cost, you'll still put a few bucks in your pocket, right?
Correct. Along with the better part of the down payment.
Right. So let's not counting closing costs. Basically, you're looking at putting 15,000 in your pocket, selling out a front end partial to get rid of the short-term financing and keeping the remainder interest. So then it's about, okay, if I want 55,000 now, then I'm going to put that in PV because I'm going to myself, okay, Dave wants 55,000. I'm just going to throw in, an interest rate of, and then we talked about that I usually charge a flat fee on top of a rate, right? So I wasn't clear whether you guys want to clear 55 and I need to bring in, let's say 58 or something, or were you going to pay a flat fee out of the 55 and net less?
Let's do the 55 plus your fee.
Okay, so Sam, I can't remember what I emailed you, so forgive me, but so let's say I'm just going to charge a flat fee of $300. So I want to figure out, I need to bring this to the table so you can pop me back the flat fee on this, right? And still clear your 55,000. And let's just say I am shooting for a 14% yield. Then I wonder how many payments I need to buy. And does that look like what I had emailed before? Something like that? Okay, so let's call it 236 just to make that even. Then my yield is still that. It's just not many decimal places. So basically, I am going to buy, if I want a 14% yield, then I'm going to buy 236 payments. And now to figure out how much of the note that is, I got to pop back in the face rate on the note, which is 9. So then I solve for this. So basically I'm buying $80,000 of that $90,000 note, right? To be able to give you that much money. And so if there was an amortization schedule for an early payoff, right, it would start from this number. When I put this into T value, I start here with this number because that's a long time. That's like 20 years. So it's statistically likely that it'll pay off early, but I have to, it's like it won't, right, as if it will go the whole term. So, but anyway, my amortization for the partial starts with this number and goes down. And then, so basically, does that make sense to everyone? If you haven't seen partials very often, it can be hard to follow. Does anyone need me to do that again? Okay, no one does. Okay, good. So basically, I'm going to just show the amortization schedule. If you can see it here, you can see that over this is, like I said, almost 20 years. The total interest paid is going to be $90,000 over the period of the loan. I would get 170 for the 58,000 that I put out. Does that make sense to everybody? And so if it paid off just a year later, it would be 78,000, right? So my payoff, according to Exhibit B, which is part of my partial purchase contract, if it paid off in a year, let's just say it paid off, where's a good number? At 11 months. Let's say they were just shy of getting bank financing, and then and Dave and Sean worked with the borrower to make sure they were doing credit repair and getting their DTI all cleaned up. Like technically, if he just sold this off, I mean, that's a big discount, right? I would get 78,500. So let's say I get 78,500 as my future value after just 11 months. And I put out only 58,000. And really I put out less because he's going to pop me back a flat fee, because what I do is a yield plus a flat fee, especially anything on the less than 100. It's making it worth the time to push the paperwork. But here's how we're going to make it at least fair. If I got $20,000 in 11 months from now, doesn't that seem a little? And then Dave and Sean, for all the work that they did, they only got what, $10,000 extra. Does that seem kind of fair, or does it seem a little lopsided to anybody? That would make my return 46%, and that just seems a little lopsided to me. Does that strike anyone else as a little lopsided? Because what I would be expecting, because of the relationship, is that, and the reason that I will buy green paper, green meaning not seasoned, right, is because I know that if this thing goes bad, they're going to be on boots on the ground to help solve the problem, not just because of their reputation or character equity, but because they'll hold the remainder interest in the note. So it's kind of like having someone who co-signs your notes. So I like that sort of simplicity. So if they're going to give me the safety and the peace of mind, then I don't think this is fair. So this is, and so, what? Go ahead.
This is Ken, Don.
Hey, hi.
On the figuring of the partial, did you figure that out correctly? Because there's three parts of figuring out the partial when somebody pays it off early. It's the A minus B minus C would equal the final thing. I'm not sure if maybe you figured it out correctly. I'm not sure if you did or not, but there's three scenarios, or there's three steps to figuring out a partial if it gets paid off early. And I don't know if you did three or just two steps.
Well, maybe I didn't. So let's do it again, because it never hurts to do it. So basically, they need 58,000 from me, cash out of pocket, and I'm going to take away this, make it 0, right?
And
So
when you get to 58, where'd you get the 58 from again?
because that's how much he needs to clear 55,000 at close of escrow, and I'm going to charge him a $3,000 flat fee.
Oh, okay.
So that means it's sort of like loan points in a way, where I'm funding the flat fee he's going to pop back to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Like,
then
one question, what is your
Yeah.
flat fee for?
to make it worth the time to push the paperwork, because really on smaller deals, like things that are not high dollar amount, they can be a lot of paperwork and oversight. That's just what I could do it differently. I could just say, oh, I need an 18% return, you know, or I could say, hey, just 14 and a flat fee for anything that's less than $100,000, because it's just, you do the same amount of work for a $10,000 note as you do for $1 million note, right? So, but there's a lot less money on the table. So that's just what I've started to do. You know, to say, hey, 14% minus a flat fee, but in, you know, to make up for it, this is, we didn't get to that point, but it's coming. So that's just what I do on these smaller deals.
Okay.
That's just what I do. So if I'm going to put out, yeah, so if I'm going to put out 58,000, and some buyers, you will, if you work with them, they say we won't do anything less than a certain dollar amount, or they won't buy green paper without any payments or anything like that. You know, they'll make it season for a while, or they say, hey, we simply just don't buy anything less than, you know, 50,000 or 60,000 or 80,000, whatever it is. So it's just kind of blending, just making it worth the time to do the smaller deals, but still working something that's fair for everyone, at least in my mind. You know, so that's how I get how many payments. If I'm just looking at that, I'm going to put in that it's still 14. It's a little bit less, right? So, all right. So then, now that I have this, I know I figured out how many months I'm buying. Now I have to put in the face rate of the note to figure out how much I'm buying. So I'm buying that much of the note. So Exhibit A, right, the original amortization is going to start from 89, what is it? 89,000 basically, right? Because that's what the borrower's paying. So it's always going to be more than what I'm being paid. So let's look at the amortization again. So this would be my Exhibit B of what I'm going to be paid off. So basically, if I get paid off on, you know, for the 78.5, let's just say, what is that, $1,000 less, $1,200? So let's say it's $1,000 less for the, so they're, when they pay off the loan, they'll owe, what would it be? 88,000. Let's just say they owe 88,000, and then I would get paid 78,000, and then what's left over after I'm amortized down is what's due to the remainder interest. That would be David and Sean in this point. Does that make sense, or have I missed something, Ken?
I think there's another step that you're not doing, and it's step C. I think it's the first two steps you did correctly, but I think in a partial, if you go back on T-value, or I don't know if you, because this is confusing and stuff, but if you go back, I think there's 3 steps that you have to do, and I don't think you did the third step, which is C. I think you did the first step, which is taking the 79,000, and that's after, what, 12 months or something like that of the borrower paying you? You're assuming they pay off in 12 months. Is that about right?
Yeah, in this case, I said, what if they pay off at month 11?
Okay.
But
okay, so
actually,
that's the first step. So that
right.
would be whatever at that point the amount of the loan would be the 78,502.43.
Right.
So that's the A and the B, but then there's a C step that you have to go back, and I think that protects a little bit of the interest that you were talking about that you thought was the disadvantage originally. So there's a third step, and I don't know myself because I've never done a partial.
Yeah, I don't know actually what you're talking about there, Ken, because it's pretty, when I do the partials, I just have an A and a B. It's the A is the original amortization, and Exhibit B is the amount of the partial.
I'll send you something on an email, and then that might maybe be a little bit more clear to you, because there's definitely 3 steps from what I understand from the guy who actually did an example, the guy who sells that T-value, whatever his name is.
Yeah, send me what you did, because, you know, the guys that I learned from, I'll do it kind of this way. So, and I've been using their their contracts and stuff. So anyway, so send me that, and it'll be great, you know, something good to work over for a future call, and just go over what that is. And I would like to hear what you're saying there. But really, this just works out as an amortization. So basically, that says that at any time there's a default or early payoff, whatever my unamortized balance is, right here is what I'm owed on the note. So basically you can see that the longer it goes, the smaller it is. So if they pay off, just a year with only a year left to go on my term, I only get about $10,000, right? So that's how I keep track of what am I owed on here. So anyway, let's just get back to this, and we'll follow up on that other point, Ken. I'd like to see what you mean. So please follow up, and we'll do that next month and just address that. I would really love that, because I want to know, what it is you're really so certain of there that I'm scratching my head on. So, all right. So let's just say, it does pay off, like I said, in 11 months. And technically, according to that Exhibit B, that partial amount of the note I've bought, that would be my payoff. And I only brought $58,000. So basically, that's too much money to me, to the money side, when what Dave and Sean, are offering here. And there's only a couple other guys that I will do this with because of the trust factor. And we've just developed a relationship, and I don't have like the bandwidth to do a high volume of this kind of stuff, but I think I like a certain amount of this, running through my portfolio. It's nice. So basically, where was I? So then, to me, what I would do here is, let's say whatever if Dave and Sean work with the buyer and they put in a good buyer here and someone who is getting ready to qualify, then they deserve a bigger piece of the pie. So what I've decided to do and worked out with some of my other partners who I do this with, I'm going to say, I'm going to pop you back half the discount that you had to take to sell the note. So basically, if the payoff of the note, let's say in 11 months, the payoff of the note was $88,000 that the borrower owned. Let's say they'd only made principal reduction of $1,000, and what I paid for the note was $58,000. Well, no, I'm sorry. This number is just going to be the part that I bought. So it's going to be 70. What did I pay? 79. What was that original number? Was that 79?
9.
Something like that? Okay, let's just say that's
79.
the amount of the, right. So basically Dave and Sean get that 10,000, right? That's above and beyond it, right? They get that 10,000 that they had remainder interest anyway. But here's how much of the note I bought, and here's how much I paid for it. So that's 21,000. I'll say I'm going to divide that by 2, and if it pays off in that first year, I'm going to pop you back half of the discount that you had to take. So does that make sense, Dave?
Perfect sense.
Right. So then, because it makes sense, right? Because it's not fair. If the money, if both sides aren't fair, then it just doesn't work, because I didn't work that hard and my risk isn't that high. It's not like this is a non-performing note, and if it goes bad, you guys are on the hook to take care of the problem for me. Yeah, I mean, there's always some risk, but to me, balancing that risk and that reward is nice. So basically you would get that plus, I think it's whatever that 10,000 that was your remainder interest anyway, plus the 10,000 you basically got as a down payment, and then you had maybe a $5,000 spread, from the partial purchase. So you're gonna at least put $35,500 in your pocket. You were hoping if you could have sold it outright, you'd have done better, like more like 40 or 45. Like if you could sell it for with a loan at 100, what would you clear? Maybe 50 or 45 or 50?
Yeah, after expenses, 15, 40, maybe 40. 45.
So this is so you could have made 10,000 more if it would work out perfectly like you planned, but in the absence of that, this is not a bad play either, right? So if you can get someone who's just almost there and you can work with them, that at least helps soften the blow of, okay, to keep me safe, because my ITV, it wants to be so low. My ITV is going to be 55%. The UP percentage of UPB that I bought, 61%. Right? So you kept me safe. That's just my guidelines. But in exchange, if you keep my life simple and you put in a really good person, then you guys deserve the value of that, right? It's too, otherwise just put in someone crappy and walk away, right? Get your money and just leave somebody else to deal with the problem. I don't know. That's just my thinking. Any comments? I'm always wanting other people to, you know, just jump in here and just say, hey, you know, what about this or what about that or whatever.
Well, it's very generous of you to do that, Dawn. You know, we would be elated, you know, without that, but you know, like you say, this is a long-term partnership, and we've done, you know, several deals together, so that's just icing on the cake to us. So thank you.
Well, it's a good deal for me too, right? So that works for you. It's not quite your perfect picture, but it gets you out of a jam or it gets things moved along, and you help someone in your community have home ownership who, you know, might have not otherwise had that chance. And then let's just see if me for being, you're saying that's so generous, but I think it's a perfect partnership, because what if I get, okay, so recall this is the money I have in it. You know, plus you're popping me back the 3,000 anyway, just as a, like, you know, whatever. So it's less than that.
Dawn,
So, yeah,
where is the part where he's popping you back the 3,000?
it'll come out of escrow. So I would like wire over 58,000, and then at escrow they'd pop me back the three, or more realistically, I would just say I'm wiring over 55,000, but I'm still buying 236 payments. So it either gets popped back to me similar to loan points, or I just pay less for the note, which increases my yield. So either way, it's the same difference, right? Let's just go back and see what that would be. So 50.
I understand, because you keep saying popping you back the 3,000, and I don't see your calculations where he's popping it back.
Well, because he wants 55, and if I'm charging him a flat fee, then he's either got to bring 3,000 as closing costs, or I have to fund 58,000, and then the title company or whatever wires me back 3,000 into a different account that I just do commission work out of. You see what I mean?
Okay.
So, but let's just say that I'm not going to. Let's just forget about 58,000. Let's say I just wire 55 total. Let's see, and then we said 236. So basically, instead of 14, I get a 15% yield. So that's where your 15% came from right there. But that number just changes, because if this was a $30,000 note, then it's different than if it was a 80,000, you know, or I mean a funding, right? So in this case, at this price point, that works out. If I pay 55,000 for 236 payments, that's close to 15%. Or I can say I'm going to do 58,000 at 14%, right? Same thing. All right, so then let's just
go ahead. Is the borrower paying principal, interest, taxes, and insurance with their payment, with one payment?
Do you impound? Are you thinking to impound, Dave?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so are you going to have a servicer then on this note, Don?
That would be nice. Yeah. I like having someone.
Servicer. My only point, if you're going to have a servicer, they're going to charge you about, you know, probably $40 or $50 to service that note, because principal and interest and taxes and insurance are coming out. So you should figure that in there too if you're figuring out yields, because you're going to, instead of paying $20, you're probably going to pay about $40 or $50 to have that servicing companies do it that way.
Yeah, that's a good point. Dave, had you thought about who, I don't know, I think you can get it for less than 40 or 50 at servicing. I don't know, is it that expensive? I think you can keep it
at least.
Yeah, I don't think it's that expensive, because I've been doing a lot of research. You know, I've been close to getting, so I've been doing a lot of research, and I don't think it's that expensive.
It is, Don. It is. It's not cheap. It's at least almost double what the servicing would be normally, which is $20. If it's not 40, it's at least 35 and possibly 40.
Yeah, I think I have seen a lot of companies do that. I just know that, like, for instance, on the owner carry loan I'm paying on this house, for instance, it's impounded, and I think it's $20 all in, both sides.
Yeah, and
It's like $10 a piece, or
yeah,
maybe
the
13.
company that I look to dealing with is like 1875, rounded off to $20. So
Yeah, so anyway, I think it's anywhere up to 40 45 is probably not out of the market, but I know can get it for in the 20s somewhere because I'm doing it right now. But anyway, Dave, have you just addressed, is the buyer going to pay those servicing fees on top of their PITI?
Yes, we would pass that fee on to them and just make it not an option, or give them the option, not to impound it.
Yeah,
It, it's very
yeah,
important,
because if
especially in our.
yeah, yeah, it's very important. What? Say that?
It's very important that we call it escrow here, escrow your taxes and insurance, and it's just
Right.
vital, especially with the property taxes, because having to come up with, in this case, I think I figured $1,400 or $1,500 a year, is a lot of money to these people. And,
Right.
and if there's something that can make a loan go south, aside from a job loss or a medical emergency, it's when they get behind on taxes, and we've learned that the hard way. So
Yeah.
moving forward, we're going to impound all of them.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. And Ken, great point. I didn't even think of that right in the minute. But if it wasn't, if the seller side had to pay for let's even just say $20, right? So I'm going to add 20 just because that's a negative
That took
number
out about
already.
0.5% of your yield.
Yeah, so look at that. So that's really that, right? So really my net would only be that. So then I've got to figure now instead of 236, I'm buying, holy cow, look at how many more payments. That's
And also, too,
282.
on the FCI website, it says escrow impound service included on performing loans, which this would be. It said add $15 per loan. So the normal rate would be 20. So if you add the 15, they would be charging you $35 FCI.
Yeah, yeah. So you can see it makes a huge difference, right? In like you'd have to give up almost 4 years more of the note. Well, heck, it's huge, right? So those servicing fees are important to try to pass on to the borrower if they can, if they can, if you can sell it and swing it and they can afford it, or to figure out how it can work, if they can put more down or whatever, because you could see that changes the yield and the numbers dramatically, right? So, or at least, usually at the very least, it's split 50-50, but anyway, just good, really super good thoughts to think about. Any more on that topic from anyone? All right. So the final thing I was trying to get to is say, okay, I want to say what's my yield if it pays off in 11 months, right? So seems like I'm being generous. Let's say I put out 58. And what's the half? What did we say it was? 21,000 split two is 10,005, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm making negative. Whoops. What did I do? I just love myself here. Okay, here. 500. Okay, that, I'm going to put a negative number. That's the balloon amount I would get back, right? That difference between Exhibit B, the unamortized balance on Exhibit B, and my purchase price.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
right.
I'm sorry. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and I put in 58, and I got, what was that number again? 723.44.
Yeah.
723.44. Just assuming all servicing fees were taken out elsewhere. Thanks for bringing that up, Ken. I mean, that is such a changer and deal killer. And it was 11 months right here. So what would my yield be? 32. Hey, did I do bad on that? Did I, is that okay? Is that okay that I just sat back and, did that? I mean, I think that's all, and a lot of my investors, they're going to put in the money and they, they're very just happy with their whatever I'm typically paying 9%. The people who otherwise would have it at, 0 or 1%. So they're thrilled with this. And so that's just, one of those bonus upsides that, I'm really keen on. So I don't know. That's just my thoughts of how do you solve the problem of properties that aren't selling, people who can't get loans, and solve the problem of all the risk. There's a reason why the company that was doing buying green paper went out of business because they had so many defaults. So they were buying green paper at 90, 95 cents on the dollar. That company didn't last very long because the investor was in and out, didn't care if the loan performed, and just sunk them, took them down, right down. But we need to have some liquidity, right? Or Dave and Sean don't have, the seed capital and to go out and do it again for another family and keep the cycle going for everyone. So what else?
Seems great to me. A nice upside.
Yeah, I mean, there's no guarantee, right? It might go out 30
It's
years.
a
You have to
bonus.
be prepared to. Yeah, but if it pays off early, everybody does better, right?
Yeah, the bonus that it was able to pay off in 11 months.
Right. Yeah, so if Dave and Sean do the work of putting in a good person, and they've done a good job on the rehab, so the person doesn't get in there and 6 months later they find out all the shoddy work that was done and decide that, to hell with this mortgage payment. So if they've done a good job rehabbing it and haven't painted over mold or something, you know what I'm saying? Painted over a big problem, and they put someone in there who's saved a good amount of money down and who has a good job, has decent, not great credit, but someone who's almost there, and they work with them. You can see that the upside is really a lot better for everyone.
So I
So
like that. Dave and Sean, do you guys have an idea of how to get your clients refinanced? Do you even have that in play?
Yes, my primary job is a real estate broker, 28 years experience. I'm not bragging, but I know more about the lending industry on the conventional side than most people in the industry. And
So is it your
if you,
attempt after you put someone in with nice credit to have a company for them to go through to refinance them?
yeah, we on a daily basis have to know all the lending sources in our brokerage side. So I have sources that when their credit score hits 675 or 700, I know right where to take them and how to facilitate the refinance. And so I have those resources already established, all the relationships and so forth, and that's really the end game here. So
Yeah,
how
that's
about
not
how
really.
about credit repair? Like, is there a certain system you kind of plug them into potentially, or something?
I have a mortgage broker that specializes in that. That
Mm.
is online with the three bureaus, and I send my challenged clients on the brokerage side to them, and they may say something like, "We can't do the loan today, but if you do X, Y, and Z in 6 months, you'll be good to go."
Right.
And obviously, it's in our best interest to nurture that process and encourage these people to get out of 9% money and back into 3.5 or 4. And
Yeah.
so
Oh, so if they can get four, let's say the balance is still about 89 when, later this year, within 12 months, basically their payment will drop almost in half, not quite, right? But I mean, that's huge. So there's a huge incentive for them to want to drop their their mortgage payment by $300.
yeah, not only that, but they may need a little help with their closing costs. And
Mm-hmm.
with our margin and the ability to pay off early, if we need to throw them, 1,000 or two to get out of this note in 11 or 12 months,
Right. Makes sense all day
it
long,
might
doesn't it?
make sense all day long. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Now, is somebody gonna lend this potential borrower down the road if they do improve their credit? Is somebody gonna give them a new loan based on the fact that this has land? Because most mobile homes, not too many lenders in the mobile home business.
Well, the key to this is that number one, it's a double wide structure and it's on a permanent foundation, meaning that it's on block, a cinder block foundation. And really in that part of the business, that's everything. Because it's not considered mobile at that point, and the lenders, there are just many more sources of end financing with it being permanently affixed than if it was, if someone was able to hook up to a truck and haul it away. And we deal with this day in and day out. So uh, the sources are there. And actually, the loan product is an FHA loan. FHA lends on manufactured homes on and not on permanent foundations. Currently, they're doing up to 96.5 loan to value ratio, and they've lowered the credit score requirements. Now I'm hearing down to about 630, 640, where 3 years ago they were 700. So
Wow.
all of that is loosened up. So that's the product that they could use to refinance this particular property and others like it.
Well, that's awesome. And so to be clear, you surrendered the title at the point. There's no mobile home title, right? At the point it was affixed.
Right, in Michigan, there's a process called doing an affidavit of a fixture. And
Mm-hmm.
essentially what that does is it retires the manufactured home title and permanently adjoins it to the land description. So if you were to pull a title search on it, it would give you meets and bounds or a lot and block description, and to also include a 1997 Marlette manufactured home serial number XYZ.
So it's just incorporated into the legal description.
Yeah, it's permanently affixed to the land.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I understand the process he's talking about because I almost just bought a non-performing mobile home in Mississippi, and I kept going over and over with each person I talked to because when I do stuff, I like to talk to a lot of people, and I like them to say like the same thing before I believe that it's true. And I got to the point where they had a certificate of, I forgot what it was called, certificate of something something, which means it's a permanent fixture of the land.
Right. Which is just much stronger collateral and is financeable, right? In most states, I guess. I wouldn't think Michigan
Yeah,
is.
and that's the key to the end financing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the lender looks at that and says, okay, it's permanently affixed, the collateral is sufficient, we'll do the loan on it.
Right. Yeah. Here in northwestern Nevada, and just from what I've gathered, there are private lenders that will do long-term financing um, on mobiles on land, and some of them actually, some of them require that it's affixed, and it can cost at least, I think, costs about $2,400 to get an average double wide affixed. But anyway, but some of them don't even care. So that was interesting to me. They'll do like 20-year financing at, I don't know, 9% or 10. I can't remember what the going rate. Anyway, somewhere between 9 and 11%. But that's private. That's even private guys. So I don't know. Just interesting to see what's out there and what people are doing with their money. So anyway, well, hey, we've been on here for this has been a great call. Anything else before we kind of sign off and call it a night? Well, thanks again, Dave. Go ahead, Kyoko.
Okay, I have one thing, just a personal question about
Yeah.
the non-performing that I just spoke of. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I want to kind of on the back end about purchasing it. I got a decent price on it and I did a lot of research on it. But I was stepping back because it was a loan originated in 2002 and much hadn't been paid off. It was one of those arms where it was like from 8% to 15%. And I don't know, I always keep in the back of my mind what you always say about walking in front of a judge. And I was like, if they went up on these people at 15%, no wonder in 2 years they only paid off $2,000 of the principal.
Right. What? So that was a private origination or a bank note?
I think it started off because it had been reassigned like 3 different times. So I think it started off in the system. It was a part of the MERS system, but
Well,
then it's no longer a part of the MERS system.
well, if it was originated by an institution, likely, and it was pre-Dodd-Frank, and it had a lender's title policy in general. I don't know. To me, that's if it was post Dodd-Frank origination, I guess I would think about it. But pre 2014, I that was just whatever how it went. It's whatever people agreed to. So where I think especially where you get in trouble is just a private deal that was originated post Dodd-Frank. That would be more concerned because usually the institutions, they have their, I don't know, not always. Anyone else have thoughts? Ken, do you have thoughts on that if you're still here?
I'm sorry, Don, on what exactly?
Just she's saying she was worried about buying a note
I
that
was
had a 15% interest rate. It was originated in 2002 by an institution, and she's going, hey, but Dodd-Frank, but hey, but that was really pre-Dodd-Frank origination, plus it was institutional. So
This is a non-performing. This is a non-performing note,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would tell her if she hasn't had a lot of experience to get a performing note and worry about what you need to worry. Sometimes you worry about so much that you forget about doing something. So I would say don't worry about the non-performing right now. Go for the performing, and do your due diligence on that note, and then learn from that. And because if this is a mobile home, your interest rates or usury laws are a little different than on mobile homes than on regular single-family homes.
Okay, understood.
Well, it's
Right now, that's just the way my mind thinks. I'm looking for anything to get going. And I mean, I'm not one to like, okay, I'm just gonna take this because I want to know. I'm not like that. I want to do everything the way it's supposed to be done. So now I'm starting to entertain non-performing loans. And this is like my first one that I really, had a deal on, but I backed up because I mean it was so long. It's like 2016 now, and they've only paid off like $2,000. So I'm like, I don't want to walk into a court and you know what I mean. The judge is looking at me crazy. Oh, this why they only paid 2,000 of the principal in 10 years, more than 10
Yeah, that's why I was recommending that you get a performing note, because if you get a performing note, that means hopefully all the paperwork was done correctly. That's number one. And number two, on non-performing notes, it's all about statistics. Unless you're going to buy 15 of them, don't buy one.
Okay. Great.
Because
yeah.
out of that 15, you're going to have 3 that just you're not going to make any money on. You're going to have 4 or 5 that you're going to do very well, I mean pretty well, and then you're going to have 2 or 3 that are going to be home runs. But if you try to do one non-performing note, because of the time frame, meaning it's going to be at least a year before you see one dime, it's going to be too expensive for you.
Okay, understood. I get your point.
Good feedback, and also it's good to be in the beginning. I mean, I did this. I was just working over every little thing, and sometimes I can still be guilty of just working things over to death that Ken would say it's not worth your time, Don. But but I think I could figure this out, and
Yeah, that is
But
me. enjoy having your feedback. But I'm like always in there. I'm verifying. Like I was like associate where I worked for the government, and I was into verifying stuff. So I'm like great at verifying stuff, and I think maybe I over verify just to
Well,
make sure I'm on point.
well, yeah. So if you're buying a performing note and there was a good down payment and there's, I don't know, there's just ways that it just depends on, what your yield expectations are. Because if you just want to get started and you can just get started while you're working up to, taking things down that aren't coming from a broker or a partner like me, where I can leverage 9% money pretty much all day long. And I wish I could leverage cheaper money sometimes, but, because sometimes on the smaller deals, the spreads, even though they sound, it doesn't amount to a whole lot of money. So, but I don't know. You can get started if your yield expectations are a passive investor kind of expectations while you're working up to the active investor kind of money. Any other thoughts from anyone on that? Well, anyway, again, Kyoka, Ken, Dave, super appreciate your input on this call. Axel, always appreciate your work on this. You make it look great. You make it go smooth. I really, really appreciate you. And I will see you all around the queendom then. All right. You guys have a good month, and catch you next time. Take care.